the proud forest lions. As a rain-stroked day on Terrawellen 27th. Puddles are pools and people of darkness, of the worship of the arabesque of the strut of its language, swinging through the trees. People are different. People are the same. The Esperanto of the psyche. I said that to a chick at a party one time. Laughter sees us and threw its spirit with us, right across the room. Sonnet in the rain. Through the coldness of February, a blear drizzle of winter, knocking about, soon to re-enter the vacuum of its final estuary, of the mortalness of the mortuary, of the paleness of its center. Gravitational as the orb of glitter of the brownstone constabulary. Morbid contradictions have a flare in my strange uprising. Being in nothingness to care for a Hay Street dalliance, of compromising about myself and others. Well, sometimes, and in April, maybe another. Light particular. Last week the lights and night seemed to descend to heaven. A pure softness of Havana and Ecuador, enchanted futile San Francisco. Isles and inlets so red I knew not where, that have come from and praised other and outermost hemispheres and other heavens of other spheres of sparse rhyme. Yeah, rebels eat babies. Hang it all, John Woodall, I told you there are 9 nieces. I can talk to you like a semicolon. I can think of a phrase that has been forbidden to fly to the sun, but has to walk in the must be quiet of the back of the must be clever in back of the UN. Talk as a poem in a daffy dazzy Ivy League suit. It should. Throne of fire. I think sort of surfers on Friday nights, of images cracking on the jetties of rhyme, stoked out free verse with long lines on the Whitman and Olson, that you can ride and ride as a lone surfer rides a 20-footer on an endless cloudy day of seeing into himself by candlelight between his legs on Saturday nights of summer. I read of Mickey Dora's death, like a night closing like Russia, like force, like an endless drunken Vysotsky of fire. A vodka, you fool, endless vodka, with a blue calm void of the flip side into eternity and reality. My Dalton comrades, on Nikita, Nikita.
Thank you, Owen.
Okay, thank you very much.
Robert Duvall, Lena Turner, Ingmar Bergman. Clyde Always. Ingmar says say hello.
Hello everybody, if you don't know me, my name's Clyde Always. And I am not the greatest poet that ever lived, but I am a completely self-obsessed egomaniac, therefore I'm well on my way.
There we are.
It's a pleasure to be here tonight. Speaking of which, I would like to recite for you just a little excerpt from my autobiography. Back in 1898, when I was 12 years old, my papa and I passed a poster in town. And the poster said, and this is exactly what it said, "The United States is off to war on faraway islands." And my papa was a true patriot. He lost his arm when he was 8 years old in the Battle of Gettysburg. And he lost his eye when he was 41 years old, because my mama gouged it out with a spoon right before she ran off. So he insisted I enlisted. So I packed up some squirrel jerky and hiked 9 days up the Genesee to the city of Rochester, where the recruiter told me I was too young, but he said they was hurting for sailors way out west. Oh, I hopped a freight and rode it into the setting sun. About a week later, I wound up in this little trading post called Portland, Oregon. And there, the recruiter asked my age, and I said 12, and he said, 16? Terrific. We'll be the United States Navy. Sign here, please. So then he gave me a handful of hardtack and a pint of whiskey and sent me down to the docks to wait. Once there, I met the captain. The captain looked me up and down, and he said, hot damn, boys, we got us a new Peggy Sue. Well, things happened to me on that ship that I don't care to remember, folks. All I remember clearly is the first chance I got, I stole a lifeboat and all the rations I could get my hands on and rowed out into the open ocean, alone and scared. But I washed up on a magical island with vast rocky shores and leafy green jungles and a sun that glowed orange and fuzzy. And smack dab in the middle of the island stood a mammoth monolith of stone. He looked at me stern, then spoke. He said, who goes there? I said, Clyde always. He said, what do you want? I said, a hot pastrami sandwich tree. And poof, he delivered. He said, what else? I said, how about a chocolate ice cream soda pond with whipped cream lily pads? And bada bing, he delivered again. And for 3 long years I sat there under that tree and beside that pond, and I wrote down a poem a day. Then, at the age of 15, I got so damn lonely that I went down to the beach to cry. Then, out from the ocean came 2 ancient oysters, and each was as big as my head. And I reached in their mouths, and I pulled out their pearls, and I held them out over the sand. And the oysters, they giggled, and bubbles they blew, blah, 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 blah. Then I rose from the earth, and I flew through the air, and I kissed that old rock on the nose. Goodbye! Then along come a guy in a hot air balloon who invited me in for some toast. And I told him my story, just like I told you, and I told him my poems galore. He said, by gum, boy, could you do that on stage? And I said, yeah, I suppose. And he said, come with me then. Oh, I could see it now. The Clyde Always Show. And I said, yeah, okie dokie, let's go. Well, the rest is history, folks. Thanks for listening.
We're looking forward to chapter 2 or 7. Clyde always is Clyde. All right. Will.
I'm a tourist.
He's a tourist.
Yes,
We all were one.
I'm a native.
That's right.
Almost a native.
I'm just here for a while.
Well, give him a nice round of applause. He has not been individual. I made the barnyard sounds, but I'm not feeling well.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm Will DeKaipia, up here for a week or so, and vacationing and want to do some readings. So, got a couple websites, kind of some cards if people are interested, and I've got 2 poems. 3 things my mother had. To safeguard her treasures, my mother had a jewel box made of lacquer lined with silk. Within, like butterflies pinned to a board, those things she loved reposed. A fan that once smelled of sandalwood. Her favorite necklace, coral beads bright as the blood drops on her pillow. The tiny ivory elephant she would ride away someday. To remember her dreams, my mother kept a journal. Black pebbled leather, perfumed ink. In it she drew imaginary maps of our real life. The elegant townhouse we'd live in, all of us but one. Fine dinners at French restaurants with menus handwritten. Those stylish friends who would call when after finally came. To share her hopes, my mother bore a son. He was blue-eyed, silent, steady as sweetgrass in the wind, and she doted on him so. On bad nights they'd snuggle, as she explained once more what powers each treasure possessed, how hopes make dreams come true. My mother has a grave to keep herself in now. The box and the book are with her, but that boy is far away. He never had treasures or dreams or hopes of his own. and he couldn't wait around till after it finally came.
Can you move back a little?
Explaining the wall. This is weird, said one of the kids. What are all those names about? I'm the tour guide, supposed to explain everything. But they're so young. Maybe their parents have seen the movie. Watched us charge from the Landicraft to hitch the sandy beach. 6 guns at our side, surfboards on our backs. Tunes of the time pound on the soundtrack as we hump into the boonies to win another war for Uncle Sam. But the guy writing this script is new. Alien rice patties rot our feet, and the junk rots our skulls, like the horrors rot our blood, and just being there rots our souls. The jungle itself is an enemy. Rocket-propelled grenades ripen along the trails. Beneath lurk punji sticks, hardened in the wood that hates us. We have to destroy whatever we want to save, call napalm down upon ourselves to survive. Even corpses are booby-trapped. Each morning we field strip our minds to get through one more of those days standing like a wall between us and the world. Then we clean our 16s as if our lives depend upon them. Those hearts and minds we came to save recoil at our approach. Burning Kims drip skin and streak down every road, naked, nine, forever. In the final scene, we battle through a mob, clamber to a teeming rooftop, claw our way aboard the last bird out, and vanish into an all-purging sea. There are no credits in the end of movies like this.
Thank you, Will. All right. I'm going to read the next set of names here just so that people are become apprised as to what is going on. So we have Ryan, and then Richard, then myself, then Stephanie, then Martin, Joseph for our teacher, and then we have 5 poets after the teacher. So we're going to have a wonderful night this evening. So Ryan, come on up. Give him a nice round. I just want to make sure, you will write down on this thing who your poet you read.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Just
Do that right now?
Yeah,
Do that right now?
You can do it right now. That's fine. I mean, ordinarily, I'm just. Yeah. But I couldn't remember that.
Wallace Stevens.
Huh?
Wallace Stevens.
Yeah, thank you.
True. That's real.
All right.
This is called a Tu Rosetta. You were launched on March 2nd, 2004. We rendezvoused the 6th of August, 10 years later. On the 12th of November 2014, you set a tiny part of yourself adrift and became the first to land on my nucleus. I am asymmetric. 2 bodies impacting have made me, but I am not unique in that. Or I have been so close to another that their gravity has distorted me, warped me, transformed me into this. But I am not unique in that either. Or so much of my center has dissolved, sublimated, if you will, and I would, for that is a far more heavenly term, that I am left, like this, 2 halves hurtling through space, praying the center can hold. But these secrets are mine to keep, and yours, perhaps, to discover. As you approached me, you decreased your velocity. Strangers across a crowded room, as big, as the universe. But you could not get a hold on me. Your harpoons did not sink. Our contact came on my terms, not yours, and after you traveled so far to get here. Rude, perhaps, but to sink hooks into me upon our first meeting, I am not to be kept. We have both traveled a long, long way. But I am rocketing toward the sun, perihelion. What cold comfort to know those times and dates too. But on the 15th of August, 2015, I'll gladly take my comfort cold, and I hope that some small part of you will still be here on my nucleus. This is not called Love is Blind, because that's a terrible name for it. Love is blind, they say, and I guess they're right in a way, but it would be more accurate to say that love is a goddamn moron. Love will see exactly what's coming, and will still jump in, feet first, no matter the consequences. So when it comes time to upgrade in the glaring face of the singularity, that's the part of my brain I want to cut out first. The part that pumps the stupid chemicals in. Because there's that moment, that beautiful crystalline moment, when you know that you're making a terrible decision and you do it anyway, and that's what makes it perfect. That's what makes you feel like an eternal teenager, which is the same thing as saying, that's what makes you feel like a trickster god. Like you're pulling the wool over the world's eyes, like you're getting away with something. And that moment, that exquisite, flawless, transcendent moment, that's what I never want to feel again. Because just like any other natural disaster, the aftermath lasts longer than the event. Replace my love-drunk doe eyes with Google Analytics any day of the week. Let me weigh the pros and cons besides pressing your lips against mine for those first 15 seconds. Let me measure something besides the warmth of your body against me and the crush of your weight. Let me think 5 years or 2 months or hell, 16 hours into the future. Give that voice in the back of my brain that says, you know, give that a megaphone instead of being drowned out by the blood rush that endorphins give you from love. Give it an equalizer to play with sliders for optimism and pragmatism. And then give me magnets on my fingers so I can slide them along the curves of your electromagnetic field. Give me actuators in my chest so my ribcage rumbles to the beat of your Twitter feed. Give me an RFID chip in my wrist so I can send you love notes from strangers' phones. Because I don't want to know you any less. I just want to know you as much as the current technology will allow, but I'd like to spare myself some psychic pain in the process.
Ryan, thank you. And now, Richard, then me, then Stephanie, then Martin Joseph. Richard, come on up here, my friend. Take this microphone. Have your way with us.
Well, I have some pieces here that could be the salute to the flag, but that's usually most of what my stuff is anyway.
Okay.
Well, let's start it with a new one that I tried out last week, but now it's in this one.
There we go.
It's called Elders to Ancestors. I've written this one because it's evidently, as we all know, there's death around us all the time. But I understand in the poet community, there's been a lot of the elders who've passed, and I know in the Native community that's happening. In every community it's happening. So let's try this. Elders to ancestors. As we age, some become elders, and others just get old. Not all elders get old, but may have more wisdom than those who get longevity. When elders pass, they become our ancestors. As sometimes is, some knew it was coming and some are stunned. Some have support and some do not. But in the end, we all must pass alone. And how we do that may be as important as how we live. There are elders who lead from the front, while others eschew that role, believing leading from behind is a better course. Both are needed. They will be missed. When in a quiet place or out in the wild, where all you hear are the creatures and the wind, you might hear the whispers of the ancestors. And if you are really fortunate and are still enough, you might hear the whispers of the ancestor who has passed. And I also wrote that for the friend who just recently passed, because at some point, and maybe next week, I might read something that was emailed out concerning his passing. And in that piece alone, and I got permission to do it, so. Let's do this one. This is probably my salute to the flag tonight. It's, I wrote this poem, I don't know how many people can see, about these two people here. But really, it's dedicated to the Vietnamese. This is a younger generation who's now suffering from Agent Orange. And I'll tell you the story about him. I followed him, kind of watched him. He was extremely frail, as you can see. And when he came out of the restroom, he didn't speak English, I didn't speak Vietnamese. And I put my arm around him with no weight, because he couldn't take it, you can tell. And I put my arm, or my hand on my heart, and I placed it on his. And when I did that, there was a glimmer, a glint. And so this is dedicated to both of these people. It's called From Nguyen Thien Hung and Nguyen Van Quay. The Vietnamese came to town, voiced concern for others, family, themselves. Gentle, beauty, grace, never be fooled, they were warriors. They came because they were ill, dying sick, I didn't realize it was going to hit me. I'm sorry. They came because they are ill, dying, sick from various illnesses, from America's gift that keeps on giving, Agent Orange. The one could only cough, 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 and with each cough an accusation against the American company and government that poisoned her, her family, and countrymen. The other, frail, bent, torn by pain from cancer and put back together. I saw in his eyes the glimmer of 1,000 suns where the ancestors lived. The place where the elders of today go. The two are now a glimmer in someone else's eyes, and they will not be forgotten, but only if we remember. I think that's the first time in any public reading I broke down, so I'm
That's fine.
how much time do we have?
Got a couple.
Let's do installation. There's an installation of truth that may not set you free. Half-truths and lies are easier. The installation speaks of war, a battlefield cross. Inverted rifle with bayonet stabbing the earth, topped by helmets and goggles. This symbolic symbol identifies where a dead soldier lay, sacrificed in combat for the empire. A name tag with text of mother's love and grief for a dead child hangs in this disfigured crucifix. Boots showing sweat, wear, sit in front. The installer later swapped the boots for sneakers representing the fact that this was someone's child. This piece has two added features laying at the foot of this deformed cross. The Constitution that contains the Bill of Rights, a treaty broken like all treaties made with the Empire. The other, the oath of enlistment, written in red crayon by a child, representing the age of most enlistees. Red, the color of blood. One can look at this piece as representing only one family. In reality, it is much more. Art will have its layers, seen and unseen, as it is with life. One can imagine looking through the goggles of what this soldier might have seen as he pointed his rifle at the empire deemed to be the enemy, or in some cases to the soldier judged to be the threat. That threat, however, would not have existed if they weren't sent by their double-dealing politicians and their associates into harm's way for greed and empire. What then are the stories of the dead families created by this one soldier, as the families depicted before me, as the family depicted before me? Will they have an installation, a memorial, a place of remembrance? Yes, it will be a living memorial, the memorial and remembrance of the wounded and devastated heart. Dedicated to Liam Curry, a man of soul and heart.
Well, that's a hard act.
Well, like I said, I apologize to everybody.
It's, no, that's good. That happens when you read something and it really means something. We know you're speaking the truth. So hey, don't hide it. It's good.
Well, thanks.
So oh well. These are not addressing the flag. I should say undressing the flag.
More
But,
like it.
So this is called Inspiration Point. And this is, well, it's for my wife, Wendy. The Pacific off Ocean Beach was beautifully calm. The day above was almost clear. There was a slight haze, something of a breeze. It was Christmas Eve. If I could compose perfectly enough to encompass this sight, the distant surfers bobbing in the blue-gray as they await a wave, the broad beach at a once-a-year minus tide, the people meandering, the lone yellow kite away off to the south, the skittering snowy plovers, the couple writing their nonsense words in sand, laughing, the black lab chasing waves. If I could take all this in, then press it, reducing it to a scrap of paper and a proper scribble, it would be the last poem I would write. If I could have you see her eyes and how winter's light plays on them, how they hold every little thing if you look carefully enough, it would be the last poem I would write. When we went out to the ocean's very edge to watch the water slide over the sand, such a thin, thin layer, how the grains gleamed, saw slips of water flow back to the Great Mother, the silvered gleam of the tumbling crests row on row advancing, how plumes of spray splashed up off the big rocks. If I could have you hear her questions, understand my fascination, how childhood memories of an ocean far away, long, long ago, touched my baby toes. It would be the last poem I would have to write. I would be relieved of this and no longer serve the muse, but when she just walked into a dance, careless and causeless, clueless and wondering all the same, if I could have you see her smiling towards the sun at just the right moment, a moment I'll never forget, well, if I could do any of these simple things, it would be the last poem I would write. Life flows with currents unseen, a hand held, a whisper caught, a made-up word, a wish for another day. How simple. A walk on the beach. If I could but tell you and know that I had done well by you and by her in that telling, then it would be the last poem I would ever write. Well, she started it all, wasn't mine. Anyway.
She woke you up?
Yeah, I had a long dream. Anyway, so this is a metaphysical piece, and then I will be passing the mantle on to someone else here. From the start of this universe until now, there has always been the light. Clearly, it is an essential factor. For what else do we all come to? I'm gonna start that again. Cause that was horrid. From the start of this universe until now, there has always been the light. Clearly, it is an essential factor, for what else do we all come to both eventually and aright but the light, light, light? No thing overshadows this. It's what moves this poor body, causes my finger to trace such moments as this, counsels the passion coursing my heart well, and what so enlivens my giddy soul tonight but the light, light, light. Terms cannot describe or contain this. Actions provide mere indications. Lyrics might bear it so long as the breath bears them. Nothing temporal can truly be seen without it, and all things eternal are made up only of it. What moves us within so as to create without, passing for inspiration's sight, but the light, light, light. And so in the deep, cold world of winter, when sullen, lifeless, and leaden heavens occlude the hope of celestial bodies, when the landscape beneath is set in a monochromatic display, yes, fish may still seize the day beneath their ice. Yes, furtive burrowing survivors do abide, and the heart of an owl harbors its heated blood as it wings down silently after sighting its prey. Dark talons clutch the unwary or luckless, where blood spatters on moonlit white. What else rules there but the light, light, light? What muffles the tolling bell better than distance and time? What rings it ever clearer to echo in the mind? What is the message it means to send all these years later? What do I do by telling you this? Why do such words as these make their way here? What causes my spirit to soar, my heart and mind to quicken? What makes a singular difference, no matter how seemingly slight? The light, light, light. When death is no longer that distant, dismissed threat, but present, promised, and immediately certain. Your intimate companion, if you will, waiting on you, so to speak, hand and foot. What will move still until that very last? What makes its essential difference felt? What else is there to keep in sight but the light, light, light? Thank you.
Thank you so much. My mother thanks you, my father thanks you. Stephanie Manning, you are next. And we have some new people. We'll take care of this in due course. Stephanie, then Martin, then our feature board. No, I won't do that. Give her a nice round of applause, please. Huh? No, I haven't done that.
Carlos Ramirez passed away 2 years ago on Tuesday. So I was just trying to.
That photo over there.
Yeah, the photo is
With the big bushy white beard.
with bushy white beard.
And sparkling eyes. Very sweet person. And it's not fair.
A wonderful singer and poet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
And he was our buddy, all of us.
Yeah.
So after school on Wednesday, the reason I'm late all the time is because I have an after-school club, reading and writing club. I'm just a hot lunch lady, but I have this reading and writing club afterwards with these wonderful kids. So I wrote this called, wait a minute, yeah, Club Essence. 8 young girls and an old woman gather around the table after school. She offers them cookies and milk, which they crave as young girls do. And they study a new word each week, looking up the meaning in 4 different dictionaries. Review the list, read aloud another chapter in Ozma of Oz, then write or draw for 10 minutes, share their work, and joyously leave. Odd girls, these sweet children, heavily gifted. Here are the words they've mastered. Fiction and nonfiction, exposition, cliche, irony, homiletics, intimation, climax, and in the lineup are credible, materialism, rambunctious, peroration, probably just because I'm reading Heart of Darkness, and isolation. No greater beauty than the beauty of thoughts offered without strictures or monetary value, now at the dawning of their interesting lives to come in a new era. They are our only hope. After I wrote that, I wrote this. Only hope of poets. Gathering of maidens, sending thought balloons out into middle space, and in what troubled space they will land someday. The last crow is waiting.
And now, Mr. Martin Joseph. And this poem is the one that's in line with the upcoming celebratory nature of you'll explain it.
Hush,
Good evening, Sacred Grounds.
Good, dude.
How many of you know that next Tuesday is St. Patrick's Day?
For God's sake.
How many of you have a clue as to what is meant by the wearing of the green?
Oh, that song.
Ah, there's an old song that goes, "Oh, Patty dear, and did you hear the news that's going round? The shamrock is by law forbid to grow on Irish ground. No man St. Patrick's Day may keep, nor his colour ne'er be seen. They're hanging men and women for the wearing of the green."
Yeah.
It's good to know that one because this refers to it. This poem's called Lennons, Brennans, Woodlocks, and Quins. I live in San Francisco, but I'm far from there today. I've made the leap and driven the drive to get to Galway Bay. I chose a day that's sunny, where you can feel the blues and greens from Galway Bay to Castlebar with 3 lakes in between. I love my San Francisco. You can hardly tear me away, but I've heard a special calling that brings me here today. I've heard the ghosts of my ancestors saying, "Won't you please pay us a visit? We have a little chore for you that we think you'll find exquisite." "What's that?" cried I in wonderment as I drove north beside Loch Moss. "Oh no," they said, "you must hear our tales before you're entitled to ask." It was only then that I could see my kin, all visualized with young freckled skin. The Lennons were there, and so were the Quins, and the Woodlocks and Brennans had also dropped in. Arthur Lennon came forward and told of starvation in 1848, when potato crops failed and the farmers were jailed if they dared to speak out of their fate. "It's the landlords," he cried. "They're the reason people died. They exported all our food to other places. All that we had left to eat was rotting beneath our feet, while the English use our crops to stuff their faces." He stepped back for a moment and asked kind of sad, "You don't know what starvation is, do you, lad?" No, sir," I admitted, though my young days were tough when it came to our gullets. There was always enough. "Then I've something to say, and I want you to know this. The deaths from the famine were mostly injustice. English lords owned our land, and each year the arseholes divided our land into smaller parcels. For tenants, the land had shrunk to a smidgen. The only way to reverse it was adopt their religion, because Catholic sons were parsed but a fraction, and those who converted got all the action. When potato crops failed, it became the last straw. Death took 1 in 4 to his claw. Meanwhile, the landlords, in avoidance of poor tax, decided transportment was our proper climax. They forced us to march with our every belonging, and they put us to sea as if we'd done the wronging. "I've just one thing to ask," said Arthur from his grave. "With the English on our land, what is a slave?" Sarah Quinn took up the story and recited the tale of 8 weeks at sea and surviving the gale. Surviving the lightning that struck the mid-mast. Surviving at last. Out to America. To New York City's pier. Then across to St. Louis out on the frontier. And their son had a daughter, and her daughter gave birth to me. So the chain is not so very long since you sailed across that sea. So that's it. I asked of my ancestors. You've brought me here to be grateful, for it's that I am for life itself and for all of you who made it faithful. Hell no, you twit, they said as one. That's not the essence of your task. We told our stories to give you wit. Now you're entitled to ask. Okay, I said, I've come this long way. I'll lay flowers on your ancestors' graves. It's not for that they all spat that we put in for your commission. It's on those knaves, the landlord's graves, that we want you to be pissing. Since they asked so nicely, I did their bidding, starting with the tenant master, then up through the land agents and all the English lords who oversaw the whole disaster. And as I did it, I heard Arthur Lennon singing, I am pissing on the graves, all the English landlords' graves. It took 160 years, but I'm pissing on their graves. Then back to the county of Galway for a final word of advice and a final thought from my ancestors that I thought would be quite nice. Look to the present, they said. We're all of us here. Go find your relative and buy him a beer. America, Australia, all over this green land, you'll find Lennons and Brennans and Woodlocks and Quens. Offer each of them your hand. We've been farmers and ditch diggers, launderers and clerks. We've been teamsters and clerics, and a few of us were jerks. We've held many positions, not all of them vital. We've been bishops and cops, and one who was a beetle. So find you a pub and thumb through the white pages, then pick up the phone and don't ask what his age is. Just get him to join you, or better yet, her. For in the age of liberation, that isn't a slur. And hold your mugs high. It's them that will join you to past, present, and future, none of whom has a clue. And one last thing. Don't just stay at an end. Instead, knock on the doors of your most distant kin. Say, I'm here from America. Won't you let me come in? All you Lennons and Brennans and Woodlocks.
There's a friend of mine, his name is Quinn. I just not made that connection. So somewhere along the line.
Oh, there's a Quinn under every rock in Ireland, and a Brennan too.
Yeah, well,
but Lennons are rare.
Lennons are rare. And I actually, Brennans. Brennans, yeah, Brennans.
Yeah, Don Brennan.
Yeah, Don Brennan, but there was a Brennan in my life, in my past life before.
The upper right picture on that wall is
That
Don
is
Brennan.
Don Brennan there. Upper right, as you face it.
Yeah.
All right. We have come to that solemn moment. I was going to say sullen, but it's not sullen, it's solemn. A quiet, understated individual whose poetry has traveled the world along with him. Wait a minute, that's my signal.
Time's up, Dan.
Now I'm supposed to start. I practiced that. Well, Carl Wiener, a San Franciscan, a poet, a wanderer, a troubadour, well, in the sense that he writes poems about where he goes to and brings them for us. So, come on up, give them your best. We love you, and we respect you in this house. Thank you.
Give him a round of applause.
Green.
Okay,
Here's my green.
hi, Don. So is this good?
Yeah, I'm not small.
All right.
So give more space to the people who are going to be after me. I'll hold the applause till the end, maybe. You know, I'm just gonna. My friend Rosemary says I should read them in succession and not overly introduce, and so I'll try to follow her advice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Of fountains and freeways. Wherever I went, I would remain standing near fountains or freeways, partly because I loved the continuity of their whispering, like the constancy ascribed to silence, though of an audible register, but also because I wanted to see how long it would take for the sounds to pass into an inaudible stratum. Sounds heard at first and then not any longer, because thought is always waiting to take over, deafening thought, which clouds and shuts out even the sound of freeways or fountains, stentorian thought, which replaces, overlays punctuationless, continuous whispers, like those of fountains and freeways, with the insidious current of itself. Requiem for a traveling salesperson. Because he traveled by night, and because the night makes no distinctions between earth and sky, his life was about galaxies. The face of the land was always withheld from him by the darkness. Therefore, the riveting memory of landscape was never aroused in him during the daylight. He belonged with those travelers shadowed by the infinite. He looked on the cities and their interstices on earth as if he were looking at the star clusters and emptiness of space. His memory visits me like the sky of a planetarium. I read this one once to Edwin, and I remember. The forests disappeared. The forests disappeared from the surface of the earth. It was during the time of their disappearance that the cities were invested with everything that people once feared of the forests: darkness, endlessness, hopelessness, entanglement, the impossibility of ever finding a way out, or of being found, or of knowing where one was. And whenever the sirens of the police cars, or the fire trucks, or the ambulances force everyone and everything to get out of their way and vanish at an uncertain remote point, when the wail or the shriek of their sound has all the force of a strategy to cause despair and besiege, I remember that the forests once covered the land, but now the sirens cover the same distance. In Thessaloniki, I walked from the upper to the lower city in a zigzag path to mitigate the steepness of the descent. Though my footsteps resounded in the quiet streets, I wore the tentative mien appropriate to a courteous stranger, because I did not want to be intrusive. I think the local people could detect that I was a traveler without abyssal or excoriating memories of where I had been before, and that I was not so foreign that I did not hope someday to look back on my past, all of my wretched past, with charity. We followed the light. Our plane ascended to a level above the clouds, and the flight followed the daylight for as long as the light remained in the sky. Once in a while the cockpit door opened to reveal through the cockpit windows the eggshell blue of the twilight atmosphere, underlined with gold, directly ahead of our flight path. The light ultimately dwindled faster than we could keep up with it in its impermanence, but our westward trajectory, for most of its duration, pursued the sinking luminosity in the evening sky, and maybe all of us returned to earth with more tenderness than before for the fragmentary, dispersed, and scattered lights of a night on earth. Light of the vanguard. Now that pre-death plays my hands and fingers with its own dexterity, as if it trained on the glass harmonica, dissevering my touch from attachment to the things of this world, I fall back on my memory of the dimly lit places that were wholly accepting of me. I have always been so anxious to be heard that I never paused to find out if the immense movie theaters that used to receive me have a wistful, indulgent comment of their own to share on my ingenuous face in the light of the avant-garde films of 5 decades ago. I can only defer to the armrests and seats that embraced and dandled me like grandparents in a garden reunion so distant in time that it might never have occurred. The werewolf god. My voice broke when I reconsidered the feeble speech I prepared and rehearsed for you. I should have offered you the gravel in my throat instead. I meant to tell you that the werewolf god owns and operates me. He never fails to show me the futility of explanations. As soon as I open my mouth, his sarcastic and sustained howling, with its notes of loathing and amusement, prevents me from hearing myself and believing what I thought I wanted to say. In the sculpture park, when he kissed her goodbye amid the encyclopedic range of sculptures, I admired the courage of their love. I averted my eyes. My presence must have been intrusive in face of the depth and privacy of their mutual adoring gaze. I have been too influenced by death to share a public space with lovers. Some people say that death can be heard in my voice and some of my lexical choices. Yet I always thought that I was made for affection, and even if death, brusque death, was never a split second late for its many appointments with me, I still hope that I too am worthy of a kiss. Mimes painted in silver or gold. I still dream of traveling, though my accounts of past sequences have been impaired by accidents of light and repetitions, and by the poverty of generic nouns, which sometimes have to serve for what I must abbreviate. This is why vacancy, silence, and stillness have annexed my looking back and inward. In the disarray of erasures and similitudes, I must find the real thread that links a day, an hour, a week, all in order to recount what is left of my different adventures. I must ask who I am with and inside memory. If you expect to meet with a winter scout on horseback, inquisitive and determined, you will have to pass me by. I end by resembling those stock still mimes covered in silver paint or gold I find at every destination, who seem to stand for memory and its atrophies. Gunnebo is the name of a Rococo palace outside of Gothenburg, Sweden. Gunnebo. I wanted to record a slow sonata movement. Can I start now?
Yeah, go.
I wanted to record a slow sonata movement with the sound of strong wind blowing around and through it. That could be one version of my visit to Gunnebo. The mansion there was locked against me, and I, as the first excluded one of the season, had only the outdoor view of the French garden in the wild early autumn light and air. I was clearly reinforcing my solitude, or to put it another way, I was leaving the old world of memories and associations for a new one, of amnesia almost, where I won't be able to explain myself or even remember my own name. The effects of the wind machine will suggest desolation only to the friends I left behind. To me, it will signify change. Mexican Cafe, Financial District. Now that the lunch rush is over, desertion is evident. Drips of refried beans are pending wipe-off. Tangley crescent, tinsel, shreds, and shards of foil wraps exceed the confines of ovoid wax lattice baskets. The attendant's edge these disengaged, feather-light, silvery fragments into trash bags. Once they clung as tight as evening gowns to succulent super burritos. They make a crinkly, rustling music as they are gathered in, since there is nothing more for them to protect or embrace. Gothenburg drag queen. She boarded the tram in a gray 50s two-piece, like a long-vanished air hostess, in the way of a fortuitous accord between private and public sectors. The outfit must have chosen her as much as she had thoughtfully chosen it. You could read her drag as a sort of oxymoronic gesture, too, like showing off for the sake of invisibility, or conformity to the doctrinal fog that Hildegard Knef once sang about. She had cross-dressed in the style of a quieter decade, when even the sky and its weather discouraged ostentation, and a stewardess took flight within the boundless indistinctions of a vast, universal pearl. This poem refers to Milano Centrale. That's the main railway station in Milan, Italy. It's very big. Americans aren't used to train stations like this. It's enormous. Leaving Milano Centrale at sunset, December. Abandoned structures of rust and punctured glass resemble descriptions or movies of post-apocalyptic cities, and most evident is the decision not to raise or reconstruct, but instead to let decomposition proceed. Ogni van chiuso, Michelangelo wrote of the passage from dusk to night, and this means the union of lovers too. We respect their need to join together at this time of day and must not interrupt. But here I see the breaking and crumbling of ruins on their way to change into dust. This is a true exception to the closure of all things. This poem I freely dedicate to Owen. You know why. To Owen. Beach grass. Sometimes when the grown-ups were occupied with books or a game of bridge, I would explore the sand dunes of the no man's land beyond the beach club where the beach grass grew. How embracing the unfrequented spaces where the wind furrowed the sand into craters and cordillera, a de facto wilderness with a choice of valleys for my geographic daydreams, which magically resituated these wind-blown tracts between Long Island shorefront properties. How becoming the wind thought of me. The wind considered the open novels on deck chairs, skimming them front to back, then back to front. Tree of disabuse. Que se pago lo más es la inocencia, That's a quotation from Ana Maria Matute. Innocence is what has to be paid for the most. Deceptions I once believed are at last exposed, either by those who know the real story, or because I detected a lie in the first place and figured out the truth for myself. Innocence is the costliest maladjustment of all. I am at least grateful for my versatile heart, evidently reserved for the challenge of ever new, harsher revelations. The tree of my disabuse continues to flourish. Neo-Hegelian soliloquy. In the measure that I internalized the world, the silence all around me deepened. I transferred the multifariousness of the world to within. I became convinced that there was no difference between me and whoever, whatever else occupied my vicinity and even beyond. My solitude was overpopulated and deeply conflicted, reflecting as it did the strife of the earth. That is why my text is sometimes disagreeably important with death. Somnolence. Gradually the satellite filled with passengers waiting to board flights for various destinations. The gray cloud light met their gaze through the tall windows of the terminal. The sparse flakes of snow falling outside were scarcely distinguishable from the eiderdown light. Soon, the travelers would all be ascending beyond the cloud cover, climbing into the sun-filled atmosphere. But for the time being, only the overcast sky was plausible to them. To consider the brilliant, clear light above the weather was alien, intrusive, to the somnolence induced by the soft, winter gray light. Lake Lugano, la mia perna finita carrière. The poem about the lake that you taught me reads like a chorus in ancient theater. It is phrased to be spoken with patient extroversion, as opposed to the usual agitated speed of the mind. I applied it to Lake Lugano after some cold December rain, when the clouds had drawn back along the mountainsides like curtains framing a stage, so that I, as hopeful of belonging as ever, could be joined to my surroundings and disappear into them. I searched for vacancies or desertions in places and times. This is when your voice distinctly occurs to me. Kol Nidre. This is the high point of the Yom Kippur Day of Atonement service in the Day of Atonement, in case anybody listening. Kol Nidre, Temple B'nai Sholem, Rockville Center, New York. Kol Nidre, Cantor Belfer proclaimed. This was the sign that fall had arrived, by which I mean the fullness and emptiness of autumn. Not only the season whose emblems I could name, but also the autumn that I failed to notice, hear, and sense, like the persistent hiss or whisper of the dry leaves in the wind, which I took for granted. I had grown to become, like everybody else, a poor impacted creature of selective listening and a pitiful vocabulary. In fact, I often pathetically failed in what I wanted or needed to express. I am. Elegy of the legible, illegible. The world will always conceal much of its intention, malevolence, and grief. I came and went within it, beset by reading problems, which were evident to whoever was able to see through me. When friends told me that I must accede to normative adult disillusionment and learn to read faces accurately, I asked in return, am I truly welcome to perceive? Wouldn't it be preferable for you to stay inscrutable, or for me to remain in opacity? Do you really want me to read your eyes? For I have never thought to hide my own. You have seen them dilate with terror and desire, and you have seen me weep. You know what I fear and who I want. What little time and breath there was for digressive touches to my story is done with, and I live in the aftertime of my unguardedness, with the consequences of my vulnerability. I should have worn prescription shades, though even then a novelist, if not a chronicler, would have known exactly why.
As I told you, he travels the world and brings it all here for us. A couple of quick announcements, very quick. We're going to take a quick break, 5 to 10 minutes. We have Jen coming up right after the break over there. Ed MyQ, Edwin Drummond, Lewis, Jonathan, Cesar, Eddie. And there's another person I don't have the name for. I have to go take care of that. But if you want to be on the emailing list, this is where you put your name and your email so that I can make sure you get that information whenever it so is that I send it out. I'll stop talking now. So Schmooze, we'll be right back. I like you very much, and we'll take care of the prizes. Oh, Ann Leonard says she will not be able to be here. At least that's what she said the last time we talked. But she may still show up. Thank you.
I won't give up this easy.
They said you have a very lyrical touch. Please consider us again. Then I'd send them a new badge and get the same note. You have a very lyrical touch. Please consider us again. It was handwritten, so I was supposed to be really flattered, you know.
I think you've been here before. I didn't just
The hell was it?
I want to thank you for your wisdom that you gave at the very beginning about what you said about somebody had advice to you about education. Well, that's all. So I'm not going to do that anymore.
Well,
Because it sort of got, you know.
I gave this one reading where I introduced everything, and I thought I needed to, and she came up to me and said, you know, please don't do that again.
Well, I usually don't do that, but for some reason I felt like, I wanted people to know where that,
Of course.
but see, what happened was, okay,
There's a little tiny thing.
But it was very necessary what you did.
well, I appreciate that, you know, what I feel bad about it is, because this person achieves justice for some people, that's what I want to do.
He's fine then.
And so I, you know, I kept really excited.
She's a real seasoned poet.
So what's the little thing? What
I mean,
do you
Rosemary
have?
Mono,
Well, so the thing is,
she and,
to make a very long
she's
story
very,
short, I
very
had a
seasoned.
nonfiction as a child.
But I'm new guy.
and let it grow back.
My writing
Kinds
didn't
of
really
problems that
start
were going
forming
out.
until 2007.
The good side was I was 4F.
And
That
I
side
have a
was I
lot of
couldn't
writing.
run to save my life.
As far as
Now
got.
so what happened recently is like all of a sudden it started doing it. And
Well,
I'm like,
glad I heard your stuff, you know.
and a bone infection just sort of.
I mean, I can't
And so they went in
really
and
praise you enough.
smoothed it out. This time they put like a, they took from
Well,
skin.
you know, I'm not,
If
if you're gonna praise me, I'm
graft. And then what's happening now is there's a little star on the edge of the graft, and it's kind of like, you know,
You're an
it's
epic
like,
poet.
it's not happening.
Thank
And then it
you.
went away.
But,
Then it came back
epic
to different
poets
spots, and
would be
like,
very-
oh, the little,
You mean I'm gonna be a rock
it's not
star?
like it's
No.
so it's
So they
like,
can't feel it, because it's inside, and you went on the outside.
well, they think it's not, they're sure it's happening, so it's just like a skin, just, you know, clean it, bandage, come back.
You have to do that, you have to do that yourself.
Yeah, I just.
Rolling though.
Well, the foot is the shape. We're just.
What hospital?
My computer.
St. Mary.
Great tone. Great
Well,
tone.
I was really and Lucy Red Center.
I was sitting back there,
Everybody
but
had them when you were young, right?
I popped on.
Oh, okay. How's your wife, what is she?
Oh, she's fine,
No.
she's had like a real.
But it's
sore
windy.
throat,
I'm
nose, eyes.
You can do
So you're coming up after the.
A couple of years ago.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Did you ever have any
Is that
other?
nice to watch yourself?
Yeah, because I figure
You know, what's called
I am
archival
gonna
art.
recite it and the
Archival art,
book
archival art, yeah. There's another local page.
Very nice.
And there was,
Wait a minute, turn your head
and,
this way.
there was another one called,
Yeah, when I get nervous, I probably read.
Which one was the most recent?
That's why I
The
have
old
to get,
one?
I have butterflies building myself.
I was wondering,
As
I was
soon as they fly out,
going.
as soon as they fly out, I'll feel hungry. But right now I feel full.
Oh, okay.
They're all.
Because I was sitting there going,
She hasn't touched me
Now,
yet.
the others on the show.
I was thinking maybe she's the one to eat while people are reading, so the break will come and then she'll eat it.
Oh,
They're taking away my appetite, they're just full in there.
They're moving around a little.
Yeah.
Yeah, one per minute.
Good, good.
That's how I saw it.
You're happy about one.
So what is F?
20 or 25.
It's the initials of both of my parents.
They give you 20
Parents' last names. I changed it from my last name because I didn't want my employers to try to look me up.
Right, I'm a little worried.
I don't want employers to. Yeah.
There she is now,
Yeah.
Right there. Doesn't look like her. That's right.
Pardon? That's our dog.
And if it's not her, we'll get practice of what we're gonna do when we do practice. Okay, no, okay, that's fine.
Have you lived in
Very good to see you.
Oh, no, I'm just probably go other places here. I'm just visiting it when I go to places. I don't live in Australia. I lived as a child in Norway. And I've worked in
I haven't been coming very often.
Oh, okay. See, I didn't know that. I thought, wow. Little growing up there, I did in these days. My brother actually was in the police department at one time. Yeah, he worked for them until the police chief of the department was assassinated. And the people who took care of managed the crime scene did it so badly that the FBI agent who came there to double check it happened and said, we'll never verify this. Because they didn't preserve the scene, people walked through, did everything. That guy was my brother's main actor for being an okay guy. Once he was gone, my brother said, he left. actually is it right? Because what happened to him subsequently to that is he gets called to go to this place. And it's the kind, I don't know that there's codes, the code meant gunshots inside the house. And the whole thing, we always have the backup, so he calls for backup.
We don't know why.
Well, the backup never shows up.
But was, I always think of it as Gypsy Davis.
No.
You remember
then,
Gypsy Davis?
You know, then
I'm
the police
sure.
chief gets back and he realizes
that morphed into Amanda Guar, which is now on market.
Into what?
Amanda Guar.
Oh, you're kidding.
I am not. I've never been so serious in my life. Now it is called Amanda
I've been
Guar.
there, but I didn't know it had a relation.
And they, you know, they're adaptive, like that David and vegetarian both.
Yeah.
But that is the old Gypsy Davis. So long he would do things. And Gypsy Davis had much better taste for people, and that was a little.
the only thing is that the only thing
That
that is though,
you know, the meatloaf.
Oh, I used to love
don't
that
know
because
that dark gravy.
and you can have the onion gravy.
Yeah.
Oh, I loved it. And then
Yeah.
they quit serving that gravy. They put a different gravy out of it.
Yeah.
I got tomato gravy or something. I don't know what it was. But it was
Yeah, I
very
love
good.
Gypsy Davis. Oh my God.
I still go, we still go there. But it's different, but it's still good.
Oh, I can't find
And
it.
nice people work.
There were these marvelous vegetarian restaurants in the city.
So,
in that period, you ever go to Shandy Gap on
It's close enough.
That was exquisite. They had this spread, they gave you their own baked bread.
so when you did, when that picture of you in the suit, what was that all
Was
about?
related
Oh, I model cartoons.
the fellow
It was related to Sri Chidmoy. That was his
Lately,
baby.
not so much.
Even
but
from the
I've
beginning,
all
I
over
didn't
my
realize that.
face.
I knew it.
That's how come I knew.
Don't look so closely, I'm sorry, I make a fit up.
Because Sri Chinmoy was still, it was a martial artist. Sri Chinmoy.
That's right
The
there,
guy,
market and,
the guru that started teaching they were all like angels in white.
oh, they have blue, a light blue color.
Oh, right.
Don't forget that. And they have a fountain on the wall.
Were you
What?
Were you an angel? I don't think so. I don't think poetry.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Very good job.
and I use the term correctly, ladies and gentlemen. If you could kindly take your seats, we're about to get started with the wonderful second half. I'm pretty sure Ann Leonard will not be here. Because I believe she sent me an email
It never
today,
calls me either. I guess
but she
you get
may or may not. So, may I have your attention, please? Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
Not Carolyn.
Not quite new to this venue, because she's been here before at least once or twice. Jen, come on up here and give us your all. And then we will proceed with the remainder of the second half. Give her a round, please, as she comes up here.
Hi, my name is Laden B, and I figure if I tell you I'm nervous, then you won't expect very much.
Are you nervous?
Yes. I make visual poetry videos online, and this is one that is currently in my pipeline called Besties. It's an interesting feeling one gets when the door to a chapter in your life slowly closes and locks right before your eyes. And you don't rush to save it, you don't run to keep it open, you just stand there and watch the ties be severed and drop to the floor, and you catch yourself saying, I thought there'd be more. And so you remember the laughter and sunshine shared in that room, the times you both cried or acted like buffoons, both exclaimed in excitement, this is why we're friends! And thought forever would be there to piece back the bookends that kept you so tightly together as friends, yet forever is never so opportune, until it's too late to be importune. And so that heavy door to that chapter comes to abrupt close bit by bit, and pauses just a little as if to bid farewell to what seemed a perfect fit. And after its loud clip locks shut, you are left there standing alone, saying thank you for the memories. I wish we could have grown.
Thank you, Jen. She didn't even look at the notes. All right. Ed, then Jonathan, and Edwin, then Lewis. So Ed, Mike, you. I should have given you more of a head up than that. I'm sorry. So we have Ed, Jonathan, Edwin, Lewis. Those are the next four. And I'm making sure I get it in the right order so people do not get surprised. And then we'll take care of these wonderful prizes. Yes, I have. You're on. You're the closer, by the way. All right.
He was the closer last week.
I know.
And he did a wonderful song.
So he'll probably
was
astonish us again.
Vanishing snowblood. All the animals, forgetfulness, innocent beasts, wild horses, wild water, splash, flesh, tackle. I drag land, fierce horses, terrible beings from below. Get rid of the bones, snapping sounds, dry cinders. Pests is what our worth is. Weight and curses, scurrying rats, broken back. Such are the birth pains. As in November, when we plant tulip, hyacinth, and daffodil, pointing as old bonds grown dull among mutable imaginary satisfactions, like those meotic moments in green carts of hay. Those things remembered trail, reflect attractions. The torpor brought from the soft talking has gone and left us, only us. It is time and nothing waits. It is time and nothing waits. It is late and nothing waits. I know you are supposed to say you thought it would be easy. Strived and labored for. And where is the sweet leisured result? And the sun will come out tomorrow, and that's life. When you come up for air, you find you're under the lake, and there's no retreating back up the birth canal. Amid all the plod and grovel, there has to be a secret Santa. You think, well, enough, soon enough, then enough. And where's and when's keep turning. We are like that teenager in the Gulf of Aden, clinging to the raft, and hang in there, boy. Help is on the way, or maybe sometime help is in the way. Keep the hope light on. Love is what the cloud sends your way, living today, yesterday. And this is bitter because life is brief. Friendships passing, time's the thief. Life is bitter, this is brief. Friendships passing, surpassed by grief. Time is liquid, each sun sets. Sunset renews our floating leaf. Because the mind is a mood map, as if the mind covered the whole body and its feelings and emotions, the state of the world, and our USA contribution of messing it up. And that has me brooding again. These wasp walls, sometimes the ping pong ball size, and sometimes more tiny than a pea. Or on numerous kinds of oak trees mirror me to myself the way that power of 10 idea of out-of-the-body visualizations reimagines me to me, zooming in and out from insignificance and responsibility to not even the painted face of a cloud. Thank you.
Hey, Mike, you. Thank you. All right. Jonathan, right? Jonathan next. I gotta get things mixed up. So we have Jonathan, Edwin, Lewis, Benjamin. That's the order of battle as I see it.
I have time on my hands. Does anybody have cleanser? There's going to be a spaceship to Mars to visit all of us men's birthplaces. Because we were born in Mars and women were born in Venus. Why the hell didn't they send women up there instead of men? Oh, my first poetry reading open was in New York at the Gaslight, 1958, Easter Sunday. There were a couple of guys you might have heard of there. Allen Ginsberg and Gregory Corso. Months later, I was by a park on 2nd Avenue and St. Mark's Place. And this guy walked up to me and said, "You're a poet, and I want you to meet some people." And those people were Allen Ginsberg and Corso, and some woman named, well, she came out here and became Poet Laureate of San Francisco. And she looked a lot different than when I met her. She had grown old. I happened, of course. When I read, I was 18. I'm 76. They put my age on gas stations all over San Francisco. And last year, I said I was 3/4. Lots of people looked at me like, huh? The first quarter took so long to get the age of 25. I can remember that so well. And everyone here too can remember that. Because it took so long. My daddy worked on 2 things in the Bay Area that are world famous. One bridge, one bomb. I would go to New York when I was 18. I would get a job in the theater when I was 20. It was for an off-Broadway play called Dinny and the Witches. I would take notes and give it to the playwright during rehearsal. One day this guy came up to me, an actor, and said, "See this?" It was a book. And it said, "The log of Truth of the Seesaw with text of Truth of the Seesaw." He turned it over to the back cover. There was a picture of our playwright. This was a Broadway play. And by the way, Jonathan has one on Broadway right now called The Miracle Worker. So I went into William Gibson and said, "Why didn't you tell me?" He says, "Because I enjoyed your comment." So I didn't give it up. The next month, the cast and crew were assembled at dinner to come up with ideas for publicity. I, being the youngest, greenest member of the company, raised my hand first. "Why don't you get Anne Bancroft and Patty Duke up before their audience to give a spiel for our play?" William turned to me and said, "Oh, I don't think they'll do it." Because at that moment, Broadway thought of off-Broadway less than amateur. Off in a corner of the room, not members of my immediate circle, a voice said, "Oh, I think they'll do it." And another male voice said, "And so do I." First voice turned out to be Arthur Penn. Second male voice was Fred Coe, director, producer of The Miracle Worker. Well, William turned to me and said, "Well, I guess it's going to be done." It was done for 3 weeks. About 3 years ago, Patty Duke was here in the city, downtown on Market Street, in Bewitched. And I knocked on the stage door and told the guard, the guy who put her on stage talking about an off-Broadway play would like to say hello. In 3 minutes, I was being kissed by her. Patty. Her son, the Hobbit, looked at me like, who in the hell is he? I knew his mother when she was younger than he was. I would work on 150 shows on and off Broadway. Backstage with people like, well, I was a member of the Living Theater with a guy named Martin Sheen. I held his son in my arms. And that's Emilio Estevez. And a black guy named James Earl Jones. And a friend of Martin's who hung out at the Living Theater named Al Pacino. And I worked on a show called Best Foot Forward with a girl named Liza Minnelli, who's never gotten her own voice, but still sounds like her mother. I've been writing since I was a sophomore in high school. So I guess this is a period.
Edwin, then Lewis, then Benjamin. So Edwin, come on. We haven't seen him in a while, so give him a nice warm welcome.
I'd just like to thank Carl Wiener for lending me a pair of his shoes so that it would be possible for me to talk to the microphone.
Thank you, Carl. Want me to do the microphone for you?
No, I can do it. Thank you. Yeah, I haven't been here for about 4 years, so it was a relief to find that the old home place was still active and young, younger than when I left it.
That's safe.
I was an apartment manager at one point, to a big apartment building on Broadway. And this is called The Basket. Not the apartment building, but the farm. The Basket. Yesterday, just before I swept a mess of light brown twigs the wind had whisked around the drive, a scuffling sound made me look up. Two grey doves were building, kindling on the first deck of the fire escape. From the shape, the place half hidden, and the greening time of year, I guessed a nest. First thought was pleasure. Next came fear that some owner might not recognize how doves, like love, come without permission, and order its removal. I will not remove it, which might lead to my dismissal. Next day, first thing, sweeping up the telltale twigs, notice from below the woven forming. Hear the excited voices calling as they shuttle to and fro, and wish it could be so for all of us whose wings were clipped, who tiptoe with our pens, building thoughtful nests for what still flies. Our hopes, our love of truth and kindness, all those ladders leading down to earth, and taking care of him or her with whom we share our bare bones nest of arms each time we dare to open what may still be wings, enough to reach each other as we fall from sight and sound and touch into silence so profound we find our voices underground and rising. Thank you. I was in a car with a friend who needed to pee, so we stopped at the nearest suitable place, which was a McDonald's, as it happened. And this love poem explores the difference and the similarities between reflection and the real thing. Seen through. Sunday morning, we pull up at a McDonald's so you can pee. I lock the car and wait outside the large glass doors. Because it's a little gloomy, I can see ahead inside, a kind of depth perception, who's coming into view to exit. You're a long time doing what you have to do. I survey so many shaded characters approaching, in the hopes one might be you. Sometimes I advance, smiling, getting dark looks. Yet though I stop expecting, just reflecting on myself, reflecting's not enough. Time passes. Then, as it happens, I look again, and there you are. You've changed. Older, more full-faced, wrinkled cheeks, and don't seem to be looking for anyone. A little sad, in fact. Oh, excuse me. Someone else. An older woman. Which on reflection pleases me, seeing double in that way. That one day you'll be older, and I will still be here, waiting for you outside. The real you inside, following me, looking young as ever, and smiling as soon as you see me. Here you are, I say, confident as you come forth, handing you the key, that you won't pull away, even though I add, now I have to go. I don't, and won't.
Henry Brothers. Now you know we're still here. Thank you. All right. Louis, then Benjamin, then Cesar, then Eddie, then Steph, then Garrett, because Garrett just came in. So. Louis, give him a nice little round as he comes up here. We're going to go back.
No round for Louis. You could raise them up.
Oh, sorry about that.
Can you all hear me? those asses. Anybody can't hear me? Okay. My daughter, the creative writing teacher in the foreign country, says always read sandwiched between the best writers. So I took her advice tonight, and the first poem was by William Shakespeare, the second poem was by me, and then the third poem was by the French writer Paul Verlaine, which I will translate. And they're all related thematic poems on poetry and maybe music. If I can see the text. It's fighting the chord, fighting the leg, and here we go. Orpheus with his lute-made trees and the mountain tops that freeze bow themselves when he did sing. To his music plants and flowers ever sprung. As sun and showers there made a lasting spring. Everything that heard him play, even the bellows of the sea, hung their heads and then lay by. In sweet music is such art, killing, caring, grief of heart, fall asleep or healing, die. Clap for Shakespeare, okay? You don't need to clap for mine, but for God's sake, clap for Shakespeare. If he were here, would you do that? Yeah, Mamba Hugo, as they say in Chinese. Mamba Hugo, I'll see a C in Spanish. So. You can do that with this one, because this is my poem called No Third Way. You don't think that's Shakespeare over there?
No, I was just
look at the image.
Trying to get the
No third way. The two, oh what a bore, kinds of bordering, snoring, contemporary poetry, political rants, the male ego, Vietnam, Afghanistan, he's the man, Iran, and Iran, Syrian, serial sadness, and the female libido, variations on Shanghai dinner winner, the vagina, retreating, monologue, positions, transitions, bed, begs, legs, splayed, mind, dead, lead. Now sexting, texting, awesome sex, but dude could have stayed in longer. She said with two plump thumbs as dude bored snored beside her. Poetry the loser, no third way this day. I've got a series of poems along those lines. I think I'll quit reading because nobody likes it. This is Art Poétique by Paul Verlaine, and he wrote this in prison in Paris in about the 1890s, I believe, something like that. And he was getting old then, and he lived in various alleys and between hospitals and in poverty, generally speaking, and he died somewhere there. And 11 years later, they point out they had a statue of him in Luxembourg Garden next to Frédéric Chopin and others. Okay, begins. De la musique avant toute chose, c'est pour cela préfère la paire, plus vague et plus salubre dans l'air, sans rien à lui qu'un pinceau qui pose. Music before all things, and for this prefer the odd, more vague and more soluble in air, without anything in it that weighs down or opposes. Il faut aussi que tous les poids choisis tes mots sans quelque mépris. Rien n'est plus cher que la chanson grise ou la indécise ou précise joie. It requires requires also that you don't go so far as to choose your words without some mistakes. Nothing dearer than the dull gray song where the indecisive to the precise joins together. C'était des beaux yeux derrière les bois, c'est la grande joue tremblante de midi, c'est par un ciel tombé étiadi, le beau fourni des clairs étoiles. It is the beautiful lies behind the veil. It is the great day trembling at noon. It is in the cool autumnal sky the blue jumble of the clear stars. Car nous volons la nuance encore par le color, rien que la nuance, oh la nuance sur le fiance, la revolver la flûte à corps. Because we want the shade more, not the color, nothing but the shade. Oh, only the shade engages the dream to the dream and the flute to the horn. Fuida plus loin la pointe assassine, l'esprit cruel et la rire pour, qui font pleurer les yeux de l'azur et tous ces aïeux des basses cousines. Flee far away from the murder scene, the cruel spirit and the impure laugh that makes the blue eyes cry, and all that garlic of no cuisine. Merci. It's cut in half. I think the thing's about to go off, so I hate to be cut off.
All right. Thank you, Lord. I didn't know he had such a hard life. I mean, I only know the poems that I've seen and liking them. But I didn't know
Rambo beat the shit out of him.